Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I am here today with Mr. Andrew Gold. Thank you for joining me, sir.
Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. What is the backstory of Mr. Andrew Gold? Where are you from originally?
I'm from Watford.
Mm-hmm.
It's not far from where we are, although people can't know exactly where we are in case they come and try and kill us now. But they can know where I was born because I'm not there anymore.
How worried are you about people trying to come and kill you?
Very worried.
Really?
Yeah, more. In fact, well now, okay, so my channel now, Heretics, is, as you know, very anti-woke. So obviously the trans people could do it, but obviously Islam is an issue. We talk about Islam, and that could definitely get me. Just a numbers game here. We're talking 4 or 5 million people in a country who might realize there's 2 mosques near where I live. I don't say what city I live in, but there's 2 mosques right nearby. Most of them are probably very, very lovely, nice people. But if it were to get out what I have said about the extremes of that religion, someone could come and kill me. Before doing this channel, I had another channel that focused more on cults and Scientology and several different cults. Cults I don't even want to name because if I do, they won't leave me alone. And they started bombarding me with letters, lawsuits, lawyer things. They're going to come and get me. They're going to doorstep me. And you do start to go, bloody hell, I've got, I've got family and all that, to worry about. So I've got a new puppy. I'm being slightly facetious.
It could be the beginning of the John Wick story if they attack your puppy.
Yeah.
Oh,
you're right.
On the rampage.
That's true. That's how that starts.
Pistols blazing. I'd love to see that.
I'd go mad if they touched her. She's a miniature dachshund. I'm not having that. It's cream color. But yeah, so it started in Watford. I went to a posh school. My family wasn't that posh, really, but it was.
You got into a private school even though you weren't from like an upper middle class family.
Yeah, it was a middle class. Yeah, I was the first of my sort of cohort of family to go to a school like that.
Same.
And it was that, that was great. In the end, I hated it at the time.
Yeah.
And you do see this difference. So you did as well, did you say?
100%. Yeah.
There's
so like a lower middle class, sort of working class family, and I managed to get into private school. So yeah.
Okay. It sounds like yours might have been more working class than mine, but you do notice differences, which is that the people there who are mostly very nice, but they'll know what cricket is. I didn't know what cricket. I mean, all the pads and stuff. Some of them were playing croquet at lunch. Just little things where I'm like, okay, how do I start with this? So I don't know. Did you find that?
A lot, yeah. Be invited to people's houses, and you'd be in a mansion with an indoor heated swimming pool, which I'm sure you've experienced as well.
Indoor, no. That's
fancy.
That's fancy. I knew a few friends who had outdoor pools.
Yeah.
But look, we were fine as well. We never wanted for anything. It was great. We went on nice holidays to Spain and Marbella.
Yeah.
That was that kind of thing. But my friends were all going to Barbados at that time. So it's just, and but it was fine. Lovely people. it was all fine. Went to that school, did a literature degree afterwards at Leeds, and I started I wanted to leave and get away and do my thing. And
where did you want to leave?
Okay, well, I didn't initially, and I got an email one day while I was at Leeds saying, "Do you want to go?"
You wanted to leave. You wanted to leave Leeds University,
or the country.
I
wanted to get out and go and explore and all of those things. And so I got an email saying, "Do you want to go to France for a year, go and study in France?" I'd never thought I was going to do that. I didn't even speak French. Went out there, learned to speak French, had a whole life out there, ended up spending years in France.
From nothing to speaking French?
Yeah, but almost nothing. I did a bit at school, but it was terrible, like everyone else is.
Yeah.
I had a French girlfriend when I was out there.
That helps.
That did it because she didn't speak a word of English. So we had to do it.
Yeah.
And I would say that changed my life. I'm not with her anymore. I haven't been for many years. But that moment of sort of looking back and going, oh my God, this is a superpower, because English people aren't supposed to speak other languages.
Parler en français maintenant.
Oui, on peut faire ça. Tu fais ça aussi.
No.
Okay.
Mais non.
You tricked me. But it was,
I can. So I did it at school, and I went to Dunkirk, and I stayed in Dunkirk, and I could speak French up until I was about 20, but I could speak Spanish, but the French sounds I find very difficult.
They're difficult sounds.
You sound pretty good.
You have to do these sounds like this sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so after that, it was like we had a breakup, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, where can I go that's far away? I went to Colombia, Medellin.
Nice.
Because it was like so far away from what home was. And I thought I can learn Spanish because that's like, did that for a year, moved to Buenos Aires.
What were you doing in Medellin? Drugs mule.
You're not supposed to know about that. And yes, I started working online, doing copywriting to make a living. That was the idea. Like, can I go somewhere and do maybe, what do they call it now? Digital nomad.
Digital nomad.
But before the digital nomads, I was doing I was doing it first. And so that was, I was doing that. And then the dream was to make Louis Theroux kinds of documentaries.
Right.
So to go and like look at some sort of an actual drug mule and go along with them or who knows what. I couldn't really get that off the ground there, but I moved to Buenos Aires, and over there was more of an active sort of filming thing going on. I got in with some people and we made some stuff about infidelity in Argentina. Very nice. UFOs, different kinds of things.
How old were you when you were doing that?
So I moved to Argentina when I was about 24. By the time I was about 26, I was doing that stuff.
How did you get the funding for that?
It was all so to fund my own lifestyle was just copywriting online. I mostly
copywriting for who?
I was mostly working for, it was I don't need to know the name of the agency, but it was a travel agency based in Australia.
And you mean literally the sales copy, as in come to Barbados? It's lovely.
That's exactly what I was doing. Travel. It was travel stuff. So it was they would basically send me each week. I don't know how interesting it is for people. I'm concerned.
It's interesting for me because I've studied copywriting to do internet marketing, so it's interesting. For me.
Okay. Well,
Who cares about them? They just sit there.
I hadn't studied it. Yeah, screw the guy audience. No, we love the audience. But it was they would send me 10 places in a city. So they would go, here's a city in Mexico called, I don't know, Guadalajara, or I don't, and this is the church, the plaza, and for each of those, I had to write 400 words. I did it in my sleep. It was easy.
How did you learn to do it? Were you trained to do it, or you just did it?
No, just wrote.
What did you study at Leeds?
English literature.
So, okay, so your background was English literature, and then you just wrote in a way that was grammatically correct and a little bit flowery and a little bit salesy about places, and they were happy.
They were really happy with it.
And you were funding your lifestyle with that.
They made notes, so I learned how they wanted it over the years.
Massive respect for earning a living as a digital nomad off copywriting, because you thought it was easy. I find it relatively easy. It's almost impossible for most of the general population. I don't know if you know that.
Impossible in what sense?
They just can't effing do it. They can't write sales copy. They can't write sales copy that engages the audience and compels them to take an action. So if you went back into it and you were contracting, you're looking at like $10,000 a job minimum.
I might have been shit at it. Like, we don't know.
Guadalajara is quite good, I don't know. Go if you want to, don't.
You'll find Joey Barton out there. He goes to Guadalajara. So yeah, every now and then there'd be a new editor there who would get my stuff and they'd send it back with a million red lines through it, and I'd be like, oh, fuck off. It was fine how I did it, just go away. So I don't think they were that bothered, and they made a lot of notes, and they were like, can you change this to that? They had a very specific style, how they wanted it. Call to action phrases, go to this place, see the blah, blah, blah. It was mostly that. It was just right, and it paid, I can't remember how much, but it was good pay.
It's good money.
And out in South America, you don't have to earn as much, so it was mostly that. Occasionally there were other sort of copywriting things that weren't regular. But that got me through like 7 years. And then with the documentary stuff, first I got in with a Dutch studio in Buenos Aires, and we pitched ideas, because I said that's what I want to do. We pitched ideas to loads of TV channels, and one called Fusion in the States, which was part of Univision, and they're sort of a Latino American TV channel. They said, they got back, we never thought they'd get back to us. They got back to us and they said, yeah, we want the one about infidelity. That was a panic for me, because I gave them like 20 ideas, the search for Hitler in Argentina, all these kinds of things. They wanted infidelity, and I was like, I don't know how to show this, because nobody wants to be shown being unfaithful on TV, on camera. The reason was because Thursday nights in Argentina are Noche de Trampa, which is cheating nights. So you go out to a club and you're likely to cheat. So I went out in preparation.
What? The country has a cheating night?
Yeah, Thursday.
I'm going. I'm going next week.
That's when you should be there.
Noche de Trampa.
Yeah.
So trampa means cheating.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I went out and did my research, and I went out. I was like, so are you guys together? And they were like, I'm actually cheating on my wife right now. I'm cheating on my husband. With each other. And that's what they were doing. And obviously, though,
what is this insane decadence they're having in Argentina? I've watched some Argentinian TV. It's pretty wild.
It's pretty wild. It is pretty wild sometimes. And so the idea was, okay, we'll do that. But then they'd now given us, I don't know what it was, $5,000 or something, which to me was like the most money I'd ever heard of. Not because I grew up in poverty. I just mean as an adult earning money. What? $5,000 to pay like 7 of us to do a thing that took 2 weeks to film. But it seemed like a lot, and I couldn't believe it. And I was under a lot of pressure. We ended up because we couldn't film infidelity, people wouldn't let us film it. I signed up to Ashley Madison, which is the dating cheating website, but which is worrying because they then released the list of names. Do you remember it got hacked? Yeah, do you remember it got hacked? Yeah. I think I'm probably on there. I don't know, but it was mostly bots that I was taught. I couldn't get someone to then film.
Yeah.
But we then thought, okay, here's a way to do it. I went on their most popular radio show, which is a show where people call up and they say they want to cheat on their whatever with someone else. So someone will call up and say, oh, I fancy my friend's mum. And then they will then call the friend's mum on the radio. And the trick is, for some reason, everyone knows this, the kid then has to say to this mum 3 other questions. Hi, it's me. How's your day going? What are you up to tomorrow? And the mum's just like, yeah, I don't know. Tomorrow I'm going shopping. What do you? And the 4th question has to be something. It's something like, "Do you want to make out?" Or it's like the Argentinian equivalent.
Okay.
And a surprising number of them say yes. It's really odd.
Okay.
Because they must know their son is listening and about all of this, but they go yes and whatever. So I went on the show with the presenters who do it and was just sort of interviewing the people calling up, and that was part of it. Now, as it happened, the next person to be on a different show was Viggo Mortensen, because the Lord of the Rings actor, because he grew up in Argentina. People don't know that. They think he's Danish. Yeah, and he's like a big fan of one of the football teams and all of that.
That's why he speaks Spanish. I've heard him speak Spanish. He speaks like
proper Argentine Spanish.
Yeah.
So he made fun of me. He was like, "Who's this English guy saying we cheat? They all cheat," and all of that stuff. Yeah. And it became like national news. It was a big thing. Oh,
cool.
And so I got put on their equivalent of like, "Have I got news for you?" or the Daily Show, or I don't know what.
Oh, awesome.
I thought they were going to be nice to me.
Oh.
So I went on, and I was still learning Spanish at the time. And I remember I got there before all the others, the guests, and I saw the notes and I had a look at the questions, and it said like, if he's not great or something about me, it was like, start pushing him about the Falkland Islands. And I thought, oh, they might not be nice to me. And what followed was an hour of them going in hard on me.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, oh, yeah, you think we cheat, do you? Well, what about Prince so-and-so? What about Beckham? What about all of this stuff? And I was like, I don't know. And I was under so much pressure, and I made a joke that was, I just said, I don't know. And they said, oh, don't you like sex? And I go, don't know, I've never had it. I didn't know. But from that point on, they had a banner underneath that said, Andrew Gold, the ultimate English virgin, right? Which wasn't cool for a 26-year-old in Argentina. And people in the street would go, oh, it's the Virgin, for a good few years after that happened about me. So that was that.
That's brutal.
Yeah. But go on.
But you're learning Spanish and you're getting roasted in Spanish on national TV. How much of it did you understand?
70%.
Wow.
And the rest of it's me going. And my wife, who I actually met her about a week before I did the TV thing. So it was a really cool thing to say to her on the first date. Yeah. Just catch me on TV next week, will you?
Yeah.
But she said afterwards, she felt they were deliberately using really difficult, obscure slang to confuse me.
To wind you up.
Yeah. Or just weren't aware of how to speak to a foreigner.
Yeah, there could be a bit of passive aggression, can't? Sometimes people forget. I speak Spanish, but then occasionally I'll speak to some of my mates who are Colombian, and they'll slip into the slang, and I'm like, "That Spanish you're speaking? I don't understand any of that shit at all."
But it opens your mind to other English people you're sometimes with who speak to foreigners, and you're like, they're not going to understand what you've just said.
Yeah,
you start to understand what another foreigner can understand.
Yes,
and I think that's changed my accent. Right, people said to me years later, from school years later, said, "You sound posher now." I started speaking clearer because I was always around foreign people and being very clear, not trying to use big obscure words. And I think that's helped in communicating as a job.
100%. There's Reddit threads online saying that evidence of me being a narcissist is that I'll speak Scouse to Scousers, and then in this weird, not posh, but like neutral accent. But that was, I grew up in Portugal, and you couldn't speak with a Scouse accent to Portuguese people.
Eu posso te falar em português se você quiser.
You're kidding me. You speak Portuguese and Spanish.
My Portuguese is poor, but I did get going with it at one point. It was good. I lived in Brazil for about 3 months.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. German as well.
Fucking hell.
Ja, Deutsch kann ich mit dir sprechen, wenn ich will.
That excites me.
Yeah, I bet it does. I see under the table. They can't see.
So you're like a real life James Bond.
Yeah, without the looks and
the martial arts skills.
Yeah, if you made a James Bond who didn't have the looks or the martial arts or any of the James Bond stuff,
nonsense.
Alan Partridge, that's better.
That's impressive. I used to speak Portuguese when I was a kid, and he olvidado casi todo de mi portugués. Because I learned Spanish afterwards, and it kind of...
I'm not sure they say olvidado, unless maybe they don't in Brazil, but es que
no, they don't. They don't. That's my Spanish precluding my Portuguese.
Portuñol or whatever they call it.
Portuñol, yeah. So if I try and speak in Portugal now, they'll ask me questions in Portuguese. I reply in a mix, and they'll be like, "You sound like you're from Galicia or something." You've got this weird mix between the two.
If you can be understood, that's all that matters.
That's the key thing. You studied literature. Are you a big fan?
Yes and no. I'm very, I suppose. I think part of why I do what I do, and I'm sure you're similar in this way, I just can't stand people showing off about being, and so it felt immediately when I was 18, I felt like everyone's look at these old books I'm reading from the 17th century and all of this stuff. And I was almost deliberately being, oh yeah, well, I like Harry Potter. I'm a big Harry Potter fan. It was almost like trying to show, that was my defense mechanism.
Right.
And so I did, despite doing a literature degree, I chose always the sort of modern stuff, sci-fi stuff. Which
you're a sci-fi fan?
Not like a trekker, because is that even the word Trekkie?
Trekkie.
Yeah, so I don't know that stuff, but like anything like Interstellar, I'll go mad for. The books, like the Arrival, the movie.
Yeah, you like
book,
that?
Stories of, what's it called? Ted Chiang wrote that. So that stuff I love.
Okay.
Books that make you go in that way. Anything in a book that's sort of a bit, I can start feeling a victim-y, wokey kind of thing. Matt Haig writes like that. There was quite a few books where the main character is sort of autistic or something, and you're supposed to, and I'm like, this is not an autistic person writing the book. And, I can't handle that stuff. Anything too over the top soppy.
Is Matt Haig, is he in the sci-fi genre as well, or?
No, sort of. There's stuff about time. I read like 20 pages and I went, nah. He's very popular today.
Yes.
So popular.
I'm a big sci-fi fan as well. Have you tried the 3-Body Problem?
No.
It's the best sci-fi book ever.
Oh,
it's brilliant.
This is going to be great.
Yeah, it's awesome. But I have the same visceral response. I did it last night. Go through 20 pages of a book and just be like, I'm not going to be able to sit with this author for the rest of this book because of. So there's two things for me. It's like the woke sort of a thing where people are given attributes that they didn't earn.
Yeah,
you can have any character you want. They can be of any ethnicity, gender. I don't care. But if they're going to be skilled and they're going to be strong, show me why. Don't just make them that. I hate that. It's very irritating.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
The other thing is that weird, some of the English authors do it. They do like a bad Terry Pratchett impression.
Right.
And everything is very gushing and smug. And
it's too much.
It's just awful.
It's too much.
So what would you say is your favorite book of all time? With no snobbery, not the actual one tell me the one that you would tell people, and then the one that you really love.
I would, well, because I'm so anti, I'm sort of proudly populist in that sense.
Yeah.
They would, but I mean, okay, the one I just love is A Gentleman in Moscow.
Okay.
By Amor Towles. They've made a series of it, which ruined it, and they did make it all woke. So there's loads of Russian black people wandering around in it. And I'm sure there were some, but in Russia, in Moscow in 1910 or whatever, it's a kind of thing. No,
not brought to me many.
Well, there are loads in this TV series, so you're wrong, Grannon.
Yeah, I'm wrong.
But it's you know what? It's a fiercely anti-woke book. Modern. It was like 10 years ago, I think he brought it out. But it doesn't model itself as that. I think the first time I read it, I wasn't into the whole culture war thing, and I didn't even think about that. Yeah. It's just a guy. It's a count. I think he was a count when the Tsar was usurped and the Bolsheviks came in, and they should have killed him, but he is said to have written a poem that was very nationalistic about Russia, and so they didn't kill him, and they put him in a hotel to live the rest of his life.
Right.
And I don't. Did you watch the film Grand Budapest Hotel? Wes Anderson.
I think I have. Yeah.
That's that with Ralph Fiennes as the
manga.
It's it's quirky in that sense, but as a book, and all of the beauty in the world is in the main character of this book, because unlike the Bolsheviks, who are grey blobs, he takes his time doing everything he does. He eats the way he should, and he takes pleasure in things. And it's impossible for me to truly communicate. You've got to go and read it.
Okay.
Everything he does with just beauty and poise, and it's done as a rebellion, a very subtle rebellion, because it's not stated, against the grey mass that is Bolshevikism. So that's the one. Yeah, the one I should, if I needed to show off, would be the Satanic Verses, Salman Rushdie.
Ooh.
Because that's it's just the best, most amazing book ever.
Really?
But it's incredible.
Oh, all I heard of it was the controversy. I didn't know it was actually a good book as well.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I think someone said, I saw recently that like 1984, George Orwell is like the book that is most commonly used by people as a book they've read that they haven't read, or the book that most people mostly lie, because everyone's so like ashamed that they've gotten to whatever age without reading it. Yeah. And it's not a hard book to read either.
So everyone's 4 hours.
And we all know what happens, like some totalitarian shit. Like you don't need to have read, like anyone who's listening who hasn't read 1984 could tell me what 1984 is about.
Yes.
Totalitarian shit. I don't need to read that. Another one I would say is the Satanic Verses, because constantly I'll be talking to people, interviewing people about Islam and things like that. And they will say, because obviously the Satanic Verses was the book that Rushdie had to go into hiding for,
yes,
because of the controversial stuff he wrote. And they will say, and he didn't even say anything controversial. And I'll know immediately that they didn't read the book, because yes, he did.
Okay.
There is a page, if you want to know. I mean, I don't want to get you killed just for
No, I'm not asked, but like just for your own safety's sake. But tell me, this is what Salman Rushdie said.
This is what Salman Rushdie said, which is terrible that he said it, and he should
damn him.
Yes, and not us in the studio.
Yes.
There's a scene in it where Muhammad is portrayed as going behind a bush and pretending to talk to Allah, and then coming back and saying, yeah, he says I can have a bunch of wives, I can have sex with whoever I want, and it's basically saying the whole thing's made up so that Muhammad. I mean, look, obviously, I don't want a blasphemy rule, and I admire.
You don't want a fatwa.
I don't want a fatwa either. So, you know,
that's what it says in the book.
Yeah,
the Satanic Verses. What is that alluding to in the book?
It's like I don't actually know, and I don't think I knew at the time. I read it about 10 years ago. I'm not sure it's explicitly clear, but someone might correct me on that. The whole thing is like a mad, weird dream. He's the best writer, Salman Rushdie, ever. It's just extraordinary how he forms sentences, how he plays with language, and he's funny. You're laughing the whole way through. But firstly, he's the most pompous writer. You're reading it going, fucking hell, mate. You know, and he's also although it's beautiful and fun and amazing and intellectual, it's an absolute, like, it's treacle to walk through. It is like you've got I was 19 or 20 when I read the book, and it was like, I'm going to read that book, and that was
you
my
need your
project.
brain switched on to.
Yeah, I couldn't do that now.
Right.
As a 35-year-old man, I cannot sit and read Salman Rushdie books. Like, I got things to do in my life, you know? When you're 19, you're aspirational. You want to be able to show off that you've read stuff.
Yes, yeah.
But it's hard. But it's like, people should read it. But if you don't, like, you know, it's hard, and I couldn't do it now.
Yeah. It's there's a philosophy doctor from Liverpool that I work with, Dr. Paul Taylor, and he says we should all be compelled to read difficult books, and even books that we don't like. And it sounds like a difficult book that you put yourself through to train your mind to be able to. I think people who read and who care about reading seem to have more of a capacity to see different points of view and care about different points of view, because when you're in a book, you're inhabiting different characters' points of view the entire time.
There's an excellent article that I only read recently. It was shown to me by Chris Ryan, who does a Tangentially Speaking podcast. He's been on Rogan a few times, and he's got this wonderful podcast, and he's like the most controversial person you can speak to. And I don't mean controversial like Tommy Robinson. I mean, like, he'll just say like the thing that is like the most controversial thing you can think of, because I think he's interested in the nature of taboo. And he showed me this article by, I think he's a billionaire or something, called Paul Graham, who's still about, and it was all about taboo and how taboo forms. And one particular paragraph said, imagine, if we think about taboo, imagine a 35-year-old or 40-year-old man who's gone and explored the world, lived in lots of different countries, maybe fought in wars, maybe done all these different kinds of things. And imagine them coming back home to England, let's say, and speaking to a 16-year-old boy who's only ever been in their school, been in their, you know, they would have very different ideas of what is taboo. The 35-year-old or 40-year-old would come home and just be like, would think that the taboos of the 16-year-old are ridiculous. The 16-year-old would say, you can't say that. The 40-year-old would say, I've lived in different countries and worlds and languages and all of these things. I've gathered experience, and actually I can say that. And so what? So not everybody can just go and explore the world all the time. We all have things to do in our lives, but I reckon reading is probably the next best thing we can do, especially reading very diverse authors.
Interesting point. And also, you have traveled and lived different versions and different roles of yourself in different countries.
That's why I'm so clever.
Clever, wise.
Yeah, that's why. I think it makes a big difference. And I think we underestimate what that is, especially the languages. I was having a debate with my friend the other day, because I was trying to make this point. there was a big kerfuffle. I won't go too much into it recently in football, soccer, as Americans would say. The Argentinian national team sung a song that was considered racist about the French team. And everybody in England on the radio, they were all going on. The story ran and ran and ran and ran. Also because it was between the seasons, so they had to have something to fill it. But every single person seemed to agree, like, these Argentinians, we need to re-educate them, which is, if you've read any literature, it's a chilling word, re-educate, just the word. And I accept that the song they sung, it probably wasn't right for them to do so. But I lived in Argentina, and I know these people, and they do find race funny. They do think you can joke about race. Now, they might be right, they might be wrong. But who are we, if especially sort of a woke left thing of, we're not supposed to go and colonize. This is a kind of psychological colonization of saying our way is the right way, and our way is being extremely serious, very dour and po-faced and righteous about race. Well, they think it's better to make jokes about race. They don't hate the black players. They play with them every week. So what's the intent there? Anyway, the debate I had with my friend was about learning the language and how that made a difference to me. And my friend said, oh, but the language doesn't matter. The fact of being there was the only thing. And I said, well, okay, do it the other way around. Look at someone who's been living in England for, say, 10 years, an immigrant here. Imagine somebody who maybe has watched The Office and watches all of our TV shows and the news and has friends who are English and can, and now imagine those 10 years it was somebody who lives here but doesn't speak English. Well, how would they have anywhere near the same level of understanding of the cultural norms of this place? So learning a language does a lot in terms of expanding your mind, understanding different societies.
It's almost as though you're saying that the current status of woke is the imposition of cultural coordinates, in this example that you've given, that don't exist in that culture. Isn't that a sort of neo-colonialism by the woke?
I think it absolutely is. So I'm sitting there tearing my hair out, listening to the radio, saying we need to, and some people are saying this person needs to be banned. There was another example. It often comes in football. The reason being that it's a place that's very public, and you get these players who, or any sport, who are imported over here, who often had very poor, uneducated backgrounds. The woke thing is all about showing your education. It often is. It's showing, hey, I went to university. I know not to use the word coloured. I use the word black with a capital B now, or of colour, and those kinds of things. It's trying to catch out uneducated and unfashionable people. So this was a Uruguayan. They have exactly the same culture as Argentina. It's an extension. It's like Wales and England. And he said about a Korean player, basically his best friend, that he looks the same as the other Korean players, as a joke. And the fact that he said it means he didn't think that was a bad thing, because they make those jokes. So again, everybody was offended on their behalf, saying this player must be banned. We must ban him, re-educate him, all of these totalitarian things, instead of just going, well, he's from a different culture. He grew up in poverty, he has a different life. And I had a look at Korea, because the Korean player, I thought, is he offended, right? So I had a look at how they see race. And, well, Korea doesn't even have discrimination laws for jobs. And the reason being because the people don't want it, because they're happy to discriminate. They would rather have discrimination than discrimination laws in Korea. So I doubt that he was sitting there going, oh my God, someone said I look the same. He doesn't give a shit. They're from different cultures, but he's now lived in England a long time. And we are, as you say, we're imposing our cultural coordinates on them.
Yes, I do. Let me choose my words carefully here.
Please don't.
I've still got mates from all over the world, and sometimes, like, I lived in Malaysia, I lived in the UAE, lived in New Zealand. New Zealand's openly racist. Like, I was doing the door with them, so the working class lads. We're all a mixed team. We're Maoris, we're Tongans, we're whites, but it's us versus them. It's us versus the drunks. But within that circle, the most racist things you could possibly imagine was said.
I bet.
By English standards, like stuff that you just can't say. But it wasn't to divide us. It unified us. Had the opposite effect. Is this one of your frustrations with woke, is that it's having the opposite effect of what it's intending to do?
Yeah. I had this debate with a British comedian called David Baddiel, right? And he wrote a really good book called Jews Don't Count. And his point, it's a pun, because about Jews count money or whatever, but Jews don't count as well, as in, they're not important or whatever. And it's with reference to, I think, the group he would imagine himself to be in, which is maybe a woke kind of, or he wouldn't call it that, perhaps. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that kind of mainstream,
enlightened hierarchy
of oppression kind of thing. And we disagreed entirely because his point was why, it's bad that that leftist woke thing isn't letting the Jews in because they see the Jews as the privileged white, super white people.
That's incredibly racist.
Yeah. And he's right. And he's right to point that out. But my point is, why do you want us to be part of that? Why don't we say,
why do you want to join that club anyway?
Yeah. Isn't that a litmus test throughout history? There have been a lot of organizations that haven't included Jews.
Yeah.
That tends to be a litmus test, not always necessarily, but that's the canary in the coal mine of this is probably not a good ideology. Then instead of backing up the ideology and saying why don't they include us some more, go fuck the ideology.
Yes.
Get out of here. I don't want any ideology that puts different races and different things. And I used to be able to laugh at people making jokes about me being a Jew because we could make jokes about all different people.
Yeah.
Now we're in a situation where I found myself feeling offended because I was with a guy I know, an American guy who's super woke, and he's sitting there going, "Oh, you can't say that. You can't say that." And then when the bill came, he said, "Oh, you're going to pay for that, because I'm Jewish." And I thought, but it has to be for everyone.
You're offended at the double standard, not at the racism of the joke.
No,
I don't know where to go with you. What would Andrew Gold's standard for a sci-fi novel time? You're the benevolent dictator of the United Kingdom. You have no choice.
Yes.
President Gold, what is your gold standard, for actual racism where you say no, that we must fight that? Where would you say racism has meaning and it must be stopped?
That's a really good question. And that's what I don't know, but I need to think about it if I'm going to be the benevolent dictator, which I've now said dictator. But it's really hard, and that's what I think a lot of people misunderstand. Free speech is another one. You get on both sides. You get advocates of free speech who sometimes say all speech should be fine, and then you go, well, what about defamation? Should it be okay for a newspaper to just say that you fuck your mum every night, and that's fine? So obviously not all free speech. Everyone says inciting violence. Then you go, yeah, but were they joking? Did they really mean go and burn a mosque? Or were they planning it? Or were they just going like, oh God, I wish I could burn a mosque? So free speech is really complicated. Racism is really complicated. It's really hard to get right. If somebody seems to not like somebody else because of their race, an immutable character. And I'm not talking about because they believe in the religion of Judaism or Islam or Christianity. I'm talking about their race.
Something in the genetics.
That would to me be racist. If they gave them less of an opportunity at work or being their friend or anything like that, just because of their skin color, to me, that is racism.
So real world loss.
Yeah.
Not words necessarily.
Not necessarily. But if one group is getting more jokes than all the others, maybe that's racist. So that's why it's complicated. It's not fair if all the jokes are about black people and none of them are about Asians and Jews. Right. Or vice versa, which does seem to be the case, I think, at the moment. That's why Jews don't count, according to David Baddiel.
So what was his what was his desire with the book? What was he trying to do?
I think he was pointing out a few fallacies among a lot of the woke side. So, for example, that with most minorities nowadays, actors have to be from that race, but with Jews, they are often played by non-Jews. One such example is Once Upon a Time in America. Robert De Niro is playing a Jewish gangster who's a horrible character who goes around raping people. And people don't mind that it's not a Jewish person playing that role. Why is that? Now, again, my answer would be because they're actors and actors can be whoever they want to be. I don't care about this. Whereas his would be, hey guys, you guys need to start remembering that Jews are also a minority and that, the same rules should apply.
Okay. So to Steelman, his position, he's standing against hypocrisy or double standards. I
think so. Yeah. And I don't think he's wrong.
You don't think he's wrong?
I just think the better solution is to say, me and David to sit there and go, that's why we need to disavow these people, because they are excluding Jews and they're doing it under the guise of righteousness. And it's not just Jews. They exclude white people. They exclude women, particularly with some of the trans ideology. They exclude white men, of course. They exclude gay people now in favor of much of the trans ideology going on. A lot of wealthy people, these are real people who are being excluded by a very hip, fashionable trend.
What do you think about trans athletes in women's sports?
Just mental. It's just mad. What do you think?
I'd just no. I'd just say no. Like if you were born as a male, as a biological male, no. Combat sports, it's got to be a hard, definite no. Can't ever happen.
You know what? There seems to be two types of people in the world, and there is a male female thing going on here that I've heard said, and maybe you've been across this as well, that women are told that they are perfect as they are and that the world has to change around them, and men are told that they are terrible, but what is it, that the world has to stay the same and they have to change for the world.
Oh, I've not actually heard that, but that's interesting.
Obviously, it's a complete generalization, but an interesting point in general. You know, that tends to be a part of the oppressed oppressor narrative. If you feel like you are an oppressed person, often you're told, "Hey, the world needs to change for you." And I think it's also self-fulfilling, because then those people will expect the world to change for them, and they won't change. So I know that I'm very tall, as you know, right? I'm 6'4". I hated being tall growing up. I didn't like, no one likes what they are, do they?
Yeah.
And as a teenager, and even now, recently, I go to like a concert or anything, I avoid going to them because I don't like that people are going to be behind me. And I imagine them all going, "Oh, fucking, I like it, the big idiot in front of me," you know, and I'm always hunching my shoulders. I've got bad back problems from it. I'm moving out the way, all of these things, because even though it's an immutable characteristic, my height, I feel like I'm ruining the experience of other people. Now, if I did have what I think is a psychological condition, and I thought that I was born in the wrong body, which I don't think is scientific, but it's okay. I now believe I'm a woman. Okay, the idea that I would then go into women's sports, knowing full well that many of those women would be uncomfortable with it, that I would be in their way in the changing room, they wouldn't feel comfortable in that I would easily win. I was 300th in my county, and now I'm suddenly first in the swimming. This would make me feel very uncomfortable. So there are all sorts of questions we can ask about whether they should or should not be allowed to do it. I want to ask why they want to do it, what kind of personality, even if they do fully believe they want to be women and they can do it in certain areas of life that wouldn't bother other people. Why do you need to be the best swimmer?
Are you saying there's some sort of psychological fetish that makes these men who think they're women want to steal opportunities from women?
I think it's two things. So the fetish thing. I
totally put words in your mouth there. That was outrageous.
No, well, but you're right. But it's two separate things going on. I think the fetish thing tends to be, older men. So I don't know if Leah Thomas necessarily had one, although there is talk about how he would brush up against people with his penis, against women in the changing rooms. But it's two things at the same time. It's like I want to, sexualize these women and have a chance to be in the changing rooms with them. Also, I want to be the best swimmer in the country, in the county. I don't know what it is. It's a mix of things. Every trans person is different. Some of them probably really suffer with some sort of condition and don't have ulterior motives and things. But that Leah Thomas thing, I mean, you're taking somebody's place who could have got a scholarship at university. Yeah, a woman. So what is going on in your mind aside from the trans that thinks you're able to do that? I would be humiliated. I'd feel terrible. So that's what I want to ask. Why do you want to do it?
Yes. In my case, I'm going to reduce everything to narcissistic psychopathy. But there is, you could argue, the psychopathic elements there. But we tend to focus on the person and not the context. In what context are narcissistic psychopaths being allowed to do this type of thing? And in the name of what? There's an ideology that the collective has to be captured by, to not only say, "Oh yeah, go on, this is permissible, this is wonderful, this is the best thing. It's better that he, who is now she, compete and win than a woman win." That's actually, and if we applaud that, that's a superior applause than for letting a biological female win. And this is the weird place we've gotten to. How would you define woke?
I think there's a few ways to do it. I mean, one way I wouldn't define it is being awake to social injustice, right? That's what they say it is.
That's the original black woke from America from the 1920s, right? The systemic racism.
Exactly. So then I get people all the time say, they don't even listen to what is in my podcast or yours, and they'll just say, "Oh, how can you not like woke? Woke just means this." And it's like, yeah, well, everything means something, doesn't it? But that meant something, as you say, a very long time ago.
Which seems to be quite valid.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. Intersectionality is valid. I mean, intersectionality, from what I understand, is I think it was a woman. I think it was a black woman. I wish I knew her name, but I'm a sexist racist, so can't think of
the virtue signal would have been perfect if you knew her name. And if only you'd read her third book, Richard. I think you'd find.
She wrote the preface for Salman Rushdie. No, so but they were looking at, I think it was factory workers, and they were finding, okay, what's the difference here with how much white people and black people are paid? And it was like, well, it's actually not that much of a difference, but black women are paid much less. And it was this understanding of like, okay, we need to break up society into little tiny bits to see where injustice really is. And okay, really interesting idea. And then how we use it, we have to be really careful, because of course, any kind of artificially changing that involves some form of authoritarianism, and we get carried away by it and we get going. As far as I can see with woke, there are different ways to describe it. I've heard it described really succinctly and beautifully, and I'm not going to be able to do that. But my understanding is it is placing identity above all else and pushing out any kind of wrong thought that is falls foul of identity. It's an iteration of what we've had before in a search for some sort of equality, which they now call equity, which is totally different. But it this time has a real focus on identity, and we see it on the right as well. I was interviewing someone who I like a lot called Alex Phillips, a woman who's on GB News and things quite often. And halfway through, she started saying that she gets catcalled and she doesn't mind being catcalled, because she was differentiating between sort of catcallers who tend to be sort of white van men and immigrants who will sort of follow her home. And she's going, oh, where is the catcall? It's nothing. And I said, well, to be fair, I know a lot of women who really don't like being catcalled, and I don't think I would like it very much either. Like both can be bad, one can be worse than the other, but catcalling is bad. And she said, oh, are you a man telling a woman how she should feel? And I said, I'm not having that, because that's woke as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't matter that you're on the right. That's still woke to me. You're saying that somebody shouldn't be able to hold an opinion because of who they are. Yeah, no,
she's pulled a little switcheroo there. She's pulling from her enemy's bag of tricks as and when it suits. And exactly. I think you have to, yes, if you're going to choose a side, you're going to sacrifice certain strategies you can use, and you really must sacrifice those strategies.
I have every right to have an opinion about if women are upset by catcalling.
Well, you would say that as a private school educated white middle class man, Mr. Andrew Gold.
Yeah, but with a small penis. I have extreme victimhood.
And I speak on behalf of all men with micro penises. We are not heard.
Yeah. Oh.
How are we doing for time? How long have we got?
Right. We've done about 40 minutes.
40 minutes. Okay. Okay. Okay.
You're out of questions.
No, I've got loads, but I don't want to keep you too long.
I had that with Dawkins. I ran out of questions after about 20 minutes. Because every answer was, yes, quite. So I panicked and I was just like, so aliens.
Why are we aliens, Mr. Dawkins? Tell us that. How was the Dawkins interview?
I couldn't say. It was fine. It did well in the end, but like, it's actually a good quality in him is that he's not going to bullshit about things he doesn't know.
Right.
He goes, this is the answer, and that's it.
Wonderful talking to IQ autists. You don't get good interviews from them.
That's it. Yeah.
You said that an appeal. Sorry, what I think I heard you say is when people want intervention in a social system or a culture that they don't like, that's always an appeal to authority. Do you think that people who are, let's say, broadly speaking on the left, broadly speaking somewhat woke, are they blind to the authoritarianism?
Yeah. Yeah. I spent a long time on cults before this. I mean, the reason I started Heretics was because the two things I couldn't talk about were the gender cult and the Islam stuff, mass immigration. Not that either of those things in themselves are necessarily problems, but the blindness around them is. And people hated it, so I had to start the new channel.
Yes.
But I thought they were cults. But the point is that I'd done cults for a long, long time. And every single time they told me, people who had left Scientology, for example, nothing you said could have convinced me that I was wrong. So I'm very much an adherent of, if I ever got a tattoo, it would be Hanlon's razor. I refuse to be, for anyone who doesn't know, that's something like never assume malice when stupidity isn't a good enough answer or something like that.
It's called what razor?
Hanlon.
Oh, okay.
Hanlon. And I would tattoo it on my micro penis. So I don't really have one of those, by the way. I've made that mistake with the Argentina Virgin thing, and then I got called that. I shouldn't ever joke. But
you're 6'4". They know you're packing.
but it would look even worse because of the proportions. There's a lot of pressure on tall men.
Yes. Yeah. No, I believe you.
If Peter Crouch doesn't have a 10-incher, he looks small.
He looks ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm sure he does anyway, no matter what size. No offense, Peter. But I love Peter Crouch. much. But so I never want to assume, and I really go with that now. I don't think, obviously there are psychopaths, and also you know a lot more about this, so I don't want to, I'm aware I'm in a room with someone who knows a lot more about this than I do.
Exposition's great.
I refuse to believe, no, I don't refuse to believe, I think very few people go about doing bad things and thinking, wahaha, I'm being evil.
Okay.
I think that's almost non-existent. Even psychopaths, I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't necessarily thinking that. They're just getting a high out of the moment, and they're not thinking too much about, I'm doing evil plans. I doubt that Hitler thought he was wrong. He was probably a true believer. I have a lot of very good intel that suggests that Tom Cruise is a true believer. And I think it's easier for us to believe he must be evil to be in charge basically of this cult than it is to think of the truth, which is that we are all susceptible to doing really evil things because we're a little bit selfish, we're a little bit narcissistic, we're a little bit human. So
in the case of Scientology, you think what Scientology does is evil and Tom Cruise is sort of willfully blind to that?
Yeah, and then you go, well, what is Scientology? Who is Scientology that's evil? Because it's made up. If there's a system that's made, like, take the BBC. The BBC, I'm constantly hearing now, reading about how social media is full of disinformation, misinformation. I think the difference between the two is that disinformation is deliberate. So let's just call it misinformation to not presume, again, malice. But the BBC is full of that. And we know that. We have countless examples of that. For example, the lab leak theory on COVID.
Yeah.
They were completely wrong on that. They reported that, and continue to report, that Iman Khalif, the boxer in the Olympics, is a woman.
Yeah.
This is a bloke, right? It's just a guy.
Is that?
Oh, yeah. I interviewed a developmental biologist to be sure, because I don't want to jump on these things.
Oh, I was reading about it and they said, oh, no, we have no idea. There's no conclusive lab results, or so there are conclusive lab results
from what she told me, yes, and that's all I can go off of.
Yes,
there were 2 lab results. One was done in India and one was done, I can't remember where else, but in 2 separate, Turkey I think, 2 completely separate places, both found male chromosomes.
Okay.
And that the IBA, the International Boxing Association, said, okay, obviously you can't be fighting women, obviously. And the Olympic Committee did something almost unprecedented, which was, because usually with each sport they speak directly, they go with the sports authority, and they separated from the IBA.
Yeah.
Partly for other reasons. It is more complicated because of some sort. It's Russian backed. It's a state backed Russian thing. People think the Russians might be doing it because they were upset because Iman beat a Russian boxer. Okay. It seems like a bit of an extraordinary thing to do, to fake all these tests in different countries just for that.
Yeah.
But this could all be solved by Iman just doing a chromosome test and just saying, hey, here you go, see? And Iman is suing J.K. Rowling for abuse or something. So, yeah.
I'm not getting the test done.
Not, as far as I know, so far hasn't done that. So look, I'll eat my words if chromosome tests come out. But loads of people are coming out and saying, in Iman's defense, going, well, it doesn't matter about the chromosomes. There's loads of different sexes. To which my developmental biologist, Dr. Emma Hilton, said, no, there were 2 sexes. Because even when you see those lists, they say it's like X, X, XY, XXX. There's like lots of different chromosome patterns. They're extremely rare, apart from XY and XX. But they even put, look, these ones are the male, these are male ones and these are female ones. It's like, right, so there is only male and female, but they have different kinds of genetic disorders is what they really are. They're issues where things haven't grown. So she would have had, or he would have had, but she would have presented as a girl, as a baby, with a micropenis,
right,
which might have looked like a vagina. And throughout the years, through puberty, that probably has grown, and Iman will know that he's a man.
So in the developmental biologist that was talking to you was saying this person is somewhat intersex, the medical term intersex, but not female. Yeah,
what they say is that intersex is a misleading term.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, so they don't use it anymore.
Oh, they stopped?
Because the suggestion is you're between 2 sexes, and they're not. They're either male or female. And it does lead to weird things happening. There are men who, with the right kind, men with the right kind of science and weird stuff can get pregnant, and they're still men. That can happen.
Really?
Yeah, they get born with things that they still need medical intervention to make it grow in that way.
And do they come to full term and have a baby, or
it would have to be cut out? Yes. It's happened like once ever.
Yeah,
but it can happen, and that's really interesting. And it does mean that these things are more complicated than maybe I thought.
Yes.
But at the same time, that's not what Iman Khalif has. Iman Khalif is thought to be a man.
And the things were, I had a look at this a couple of years ago because I was like, this is driving me crazy. I can't believe what they're saying, which is the spectrum of sex, man, woman, man, woman, man, woman, and then so I went and looked it up, and I looked up intersex, and I got into all the definitions, and by some of the definitions of intersex, I'm intersex. Because I don't...
The micropenis, yeah.
The micropenis.
Sorry, I won't leave that joke alone.
You can't leave my micropenis alone. If you're a man and you're just not producing enough testosterone endogenously, which I don't,
yes,
you're classed as intersex. I'm like, so am I trans now?
Yeah. You should go to the Olympics.
I should go to the Olympics. I was like, this is ludicrous. Okay, but you're telling me they've actually stopped. They don't use the term intersex now.
Apparently not. They use DSDs. I can't remember what that stands for.
Dysmorphias or something. Yeah.
But it's not dysmorphia, because that would be about trans. Dysmorphia is a mental issue. Like, I don't feel like I relate to my body.
Oh, this is purely biological.
This is a biological. That's it, which is why some people said it's not a trans issue with the Olympics. This was an issue of sex. However, it was a trans issue because the reason that the Olympic Committee distanced themselves from the IBA is because they have this gender identity as the reason. There's the way you how you get chosen for men or women is gender identity,
which is that's you choosing.
Yes, which is because of it's a trans ideology. That's why they've that's why they've started this.
And part of the trans ideology rests on the idea. A couple of ideas I've noticed. One is that there is this sort of spectrum of biological plumbing, which there are, as you would have discussed with that, it's extraordinarily rare. It's very, very rare.
Yeah.
The other thing is that it affects a large amount of people, which it doesn't. Do you know how many in the British population, how many people are gay by percentage, if you had to guess?
I don't know. There was something, it was in Alan Partridge once, he sort of mentioned it, and he said, like, it seems a bit high. He said something like 7% or something, but is it less than that?
Most people, like myself included, for years I believed it was 10% because there was a psychology piece of research. That's what we were taught at university, and I never challenged it. It's 2%.
Wow.
Yes. It's 2% in the UK. But the way it's presented, you would think 7 to 10%. It's a significant amount of our population. We've got to bring this issue forward and help people come out of the closet. Trans, less than 1%. But it's the issue du jour, and we're constantly talking about it for a fractional number of people. My background is psychology and therapy. Of course, I'm compassionate to people with mental health issues, but then I don't take therapy out into the main world and insist on people applying that. Why do you think this has become such a big deal? What's the purpose of this? Is there a purpose? Is there a conspiracy? Or is it just developed this way?
Well, I would add as well that intersex or DSD people, I think it's Amnesty International, they put out a statistic that it's something like 1.5% of the population or 2%. And it's an outright lie. It is simply a lie.
What they said, it was 1.5% of the population is trans.
Yeah, well, no, intersex.
Intersex,
or
sorry.
DSDs or whatever you call it.
Only if you class intersex as
you.
People like, yeah,
they were doing that.
People with low hormones.
That's why it got to 2%.
Right.
The real figure is something like 0.001. It's so low. By the way, one of the best books I've ever read is called Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides, and it is a coming of age book with a intersex kid.
Right.
Who doesn't know if they're a boy or girl because the parents were incestuous. I mean, it's we were talking about taboos before.
Yes.
It is like on the money for taboos, and it's wonderful, fascinating. So yeah, firstly, the reason I mentioned about Amnesty is again the point that I was making before about the BBC. These people are raging against social media with disinformation and all of that. Amnesty International, BBC is full of disinformation. And I say that not as a wild conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in conspiracy theorists. As I said before, I believe most people are trying to do good. I don't think there's someone pulling the strings. Obviously, sometimes there are bad actors, but I think in the most part, I don't believe in that stuff. But I am saying I have seen time and time again, BBC and all of these big channels and charities and things utterly lying, or with Hanlon's razor, I suppose, getting it wrong, maybe not on purpose.
Did you ever work for mainstream media?
I sold my first documentary about exorcism, my first big documentary, to the BBC. I was then it won sort of best of 2018. It was like one of their best performing documentaries, lots of awards, film festivals. And when I went back to try and do more with them, I was pointed to all the production companies they work with. I spoke to about 50 to 100 production companies in a period of about 7 years. Every single one of them, not 99%, but 100% of them said to me halfway through, because you're a white man, you're going to have to be off screen. So we'll take your ideas, but you're going to have to be off screen and we're going to pretend that some minority, and I was like, who? And they were like, a minority will be the presenter pretending it was their ideas. And I was like, that's not going to work, because half these ideas are like in Bolivia, right? I speak Spanish. I've been speaking with the people that I want to make this documentary about for years, and they were like, well, that's it. We can't have new young white men as presenters.
So they wanted to buy your idea and then have somebody else front it.
Yeah.
And they were going to deliberately pick a minority to do that.
Yeah.
Isn't that a kind of racism from the other side?
Yeah.
You know, instead of oppressing people, you're unnaturally oppressing people is bad, but unnaturally shoving people forward because they're black or Asian or seems a little bit odd as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. I used to call it reverse racism, and now I just call it racism. I mean, we know, and I know you know, that terrible things that have happened throughout history, if we are to buy into this idea of people think they're doing good, well, they can only happen then in a society that allows for it. In the 1930s, eugenics was all the rage. Obviously, Germany had been absolutely slaughtered just before in the First World War. They felt very much like they were victims, and they felt that they were victims of, through eugenics, these people who had different DNA and genes and were trying to get them. So they felt like they were doing the good thing. So it wasn't like we think and we see in the movies, it's like these horrible neighbors going, I'm going to get the Jew next door. It was going like, oh my God, one of those evil people's next door us. It was like they felt they were in like the monster movie and the Jews were the monsters and they were the good guys.
Yeah.
And it's only ever going to happen that way. Whenever there has been like a really evil looking Nick Griffin British National Party, they get less than 1% of the vote. Like nobody wants that, because in our society, that's evil. But if you were born in the 1800s, slavery would be great. You'd be loving that. That's good. So we have to look really carefully. And Bertrand Russell talks about this. I never quote it well, but go with what is true and accurate, not what you wish were true or what would you believe would be good or have benefits for society were it true. And that's the problem we make time and time again. We think that it would be good for society if trans was a thing. Because we've bought into this whole identity thing. We've bought into the idea of civil rights for everyone, which is a great thing, but we're not very good en masse at knowing when to stop and knowing when to just calm down, because that is the fashionable thing to do at the moment. So this reverse racism or just racism, well, where can you be racist now? Because humans are. Humans have unconscious bias. Humans are going to look, oh, he's different, she's different. And we have anger and whatever we need to get out. But you can't just say, I hate black people, because you're going to be slaughtered. You'll be the most unpopular person in your work. You can't just say, I hate Asians or whatever. And you probably don't, because you're incentivized not to hate them. Because if you did hate them, you'd be out. Your body is telling you not to hate them. Your body makes it painful for you to hold beliefs that would get you kicked out of the tribe. It's a biological an evolutionary trait. So where are you going to put all of that anger and all of that bigotry? Well, right now in this society for the last 10 years and probably the next 10 years, before it moves on to something else, is white men. Because that's the ideology we've bought into. So where a person can be racist and mean, and without getting any bad press, they will do it. It's in numbers.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
It does. It does. What I'm wondering though, I wonder if you've come to the same sort of conclusion as me. Are you worried that the 1930s Weimar Republic could play out again?
Yeah. And
within our lifetimes,
we are right now in a really weird stage, because it's the last people who have living memory of the Holocaust are dying off. And we always knew, they say never again, because we knew as soon as it's gone, people will forget that. I mentioned before the Jews being the litmus test. I have to be careful when I say that, just because I am Jewish, and I think it speaks of bias in me. The Jews are the litmus test, right?
Well, you're allowed bias as well. I mean,
yeah.
If it were the case.
Well, in that case, I say it with bias and with acknowledgement of the bias at least. But it does seem that whenever a society has gone truly wrong, whether it's the Nazis, the Bolsheviks, or many other times throughout history, the Jews were the ones to get it in the neck quite often. In this case, that could happen. As I say, white men, but I don't foresee there are too many white men right now. You can't just gather them all up and put them in a cage. It doesn't really make sense. But the Jews right now in the UK, they make up like 0.1% of the population, compared to the Muslim population is like 20 times larger. Now, I don't really believe that a bunch of woke people are going to start locking up Jews and gassing them. I do know, however, that some, and I mean some, but not a small number, not an insignificant number of extreme Muslims do have a desire to do that. That is just a fact. It is in their text. But more importantly, because it's an old text, we don't all do everything that's in the Bible or the Quran or the Torah. It's an old text, but there are people today. There are imams preaching this kind of thing. 20 years ago, Channel 4 did a report, undercover report, looking at mosques, and there were so many of them that were filmed talking about you should go out and kill a Jew. When this was raised with the local police authorities around the country, the police attacked Channel 4 for stoking division. So that's how it happens. And that has happened before. Forget the Jews for a second, but Iran and Lebanon are two examples. I know there's at least one other, I can't remember right now, where they had really healthy, open, democratic, quite Western in our societies. And political Islamism became a big thing. And they teamed up with the left in their earlier iterations of wokeness, and got together to form a big enough coalition to take over the country. And in both cases, the Islamists immediately murdered all the lefties who helped them get into power. Obviously, Scorpion and Frog. That's how it would happen. If we got to a point in the UK where there were 40-50% of the country that were Muslim, again, most Muslims probably don't want to kill Jews and all those things, but most also might not do much if it was happening because their own lives are at risk.
I was my thing was, I was wondering if, because we're still living in a white majority country and the Weimar Republic, well, your foot soldiers, your infantry is going to be the majority, and it's going to be working class. So if we have a large amount of white working class people in this country who are being humiliated for a period of time, it wouldn't be the Jews that would be targeted. It would be Muslims that would be targeted. And I wonder if in our lifetimes we would see people shoved on buses and taken to internment camps and that kind of thing. And there's only so long you can humiliate a group of people before there's historically, there's some kind of a violent reaction to that. It was humiliation that drove Hitler and his cronies, and the sentiment. If they didn't have a sentiment to tap into, there would have been a bunch of lunatics who would have been ignored, but they were democratically elected again and again and again. This is my fear, is that it would be white, it would be British, and it would be not against the Jews. It would be targeting Muslims.
That's an interesting, it could happen. The reason I would be skeptical of it is because historically, I think I'm right in saying that typically, although we like to think of like Les Mis and all of these revolutions as the working class rising up against the elites, it tends to be the middle classes. Nothing gets done until the middle class get upset and somebody's son isn't allowed to do a certain thing at school. That's when people start to kick off. It's the middle classes who have that power, or if they've suddenly dropped in status. Right now, we have such a powerful culture that denounces racism, that talks of Islamophobia, which is again a political instrument that is used against us, our own sensibilities. I can't see how enough working class people could get together and form a coup. It would be the only way to do it, because they wouldn't. You can't just become president like in the States. You've got a prime minister. You've got to work as a local councillor, do this, do that, very gradually work your way up in one of the mainstream parties who would never accept your views. All you can do is a Nigel Farage kind of thing, make a new party. I can't see it ever getting enough of the middle class vote. The middle class would have to be humiliated in the same way the working class has been, and the middle class are the very ones that Keir Starmer and a lot of the politicians are sucking up to right now.
There's I know you've been talking all day, so I just have two more questions for you.
No, I love it, mate. I love it.
What do you think of Keir Starmer and the policies he's brought in?
I was actually sort of, I didn't vote for him, but then when he got in, I thought maybe this is all right, because you like change sometimes, and it's the same old guard were there. The Tories had just screwed so much; they were just not very good at their job. And I thought, okay, let's see what he's got to offer. I think one of the big issues that a lot of us have is mass immigration. I think immigration is a good thing, but there has to be a limit. Everybody has a limit. And I tried to have this conversation with a friend of mine who's very pro-immigration. And I said, but you're not, there's no such thing as being pro-immigration, because there's always a limit. So if it were 1 billion people a year, you would say no, wouldn't you? And he said, yes. I said, so you're not pro-immigration, whatever.
Yes, it's not boundaryless.
There's a number. And I think last year was 1.2 million. Now that's a very high number, and it means the culture's changing very fast. However, the Tories have been doing it at record rates anyway. So a chance of change, why not? They have to bring people in at that rate, because the aging population means we need that workforce. The only other possibility would be to encourage families already living here and I'm not talking about whites versus Muslims. I'm talking about Muslims already living here, people already living here, to have more children. And there are all sorts of ways you might try and do that. Anyway, so maybe Labour would do something different. So I was quite like, okay, let's see. He seems quite sensible. And the last 2 weeks, I've totally flipped. I've been really surprised, and I think he has been the ultimate sort of. He lied a lot. I mean, he sung the praises of Margaret Thatcher for one. You don't have to be a fan of Margaret Thatcher. I don't really care either way, but he sung her praises. She was such a wonderful whatever. All this stuff. Got into power, got rid of her portrait. Said he couldn't bear to be in the room with her portrait. That's not just disliking her, that's hating her.
Yeah.
And he said he loved her. So I started to look at him a little bit differently and I go, oh, what's going on here?
Why do you think he did that when he knows it's a matter of record?
He might have thought it wouldn't get out. Or he's in now. It's too late. He's now appealing to his fellow leftists.
Do you think it's unfair to characterize some of the things he's put in place as being totalitarian?
I think it is, what he's done is totalitarian. But again, I had another sort of argument debate with another friend who said, right, who couldn't believe I would have these opinions, because if you're in that mainstream bubble, the idea that they lie as well, because social media, of course, also lie. You know, if it's a social media versus the mainstream, both lie. But I think it's worse when it's the mainstream because we hold them up as you know,
as we should.
Yeah, absolutely. So my friend said, oh, so you'd say Keir Starmer's authoritarian? I said yes, and he just said, wow, as if I've gone off the. But I didn't say how authoritarian or totalitarian. I didn't say to what level. Again, this is a spectrum. Yes. I didn't say he is, you know, Chairman Mao. He might be fine. In 5 years, we might look back and go, God, he was a bit of a dick, but he was okay. Yeah. But the things he's done so far surprised me, particularly after the stabbing of 3 children by somebody who was a second-generation immigrant. That his reaction to that and to the riots that took place in the north, Hare Hills, wasn't it? I think
Southport and surrounding areas.
Yeah, the Hare Hills one was the week before about they took a kid away. Social services.
Oh, sorry, yeah, the Roma families.
They burned a bus.
Yeah,
you know, it was mad what was going on. And look, it's people rioting, people who are at the end of their tether, people who are immigrants and don't feel settled in this country, and I understand it, and I understand their plight as well. But the reaction, the two-tier of Keir was outrageous. And something I noticed happening at the same time, which did scare me for the first time in my life, to be scared of the politics here, was that he was colluding really with the newspapers. And so most of us knew, we could just see out our window, but we also saw what happened, which was that there was a big Antifa counter demonstration to go and get all the far right. My WhatsApp neighborhood group, everyone was like, hey, let's all go to this thing. And I was like, no, thanks. They usually call for the death of Jews, but you go to that if you want. They don't even think it's political. That's how far
Who's calling for the death of Jews? Antifa?
Well, there was a Labour MP who was saying he was part of the Antifa thing, and he was saying cut off their throats. It wasn't clear who he was talking about, but he immediately went to Israel after that, and it was like, okay. Yeah, some people say he just means Israelis. Okay, well, I don't want to cut off the throats of Israelis, Palestinians, Russians, Ukrainians. I don't want any throats cut. There is a lot of anti-Semitism on the left. I don't worry about the anti-Semitism on the right. I don't really, you know, it's just about the right-wing anti-Semitism is so rare, and it's a bunch of lunatics just shouting, "You fucking Jew!" And I go, all right, yeah. It's not insidious in the same way that it is in the left. It hasn't gotten into our culture, into our universities and things like that. But it became immediately clear, like, there were no far-right organized demonstrations. There were just none. There was rioting, but people called far-right. We don't know if they were or weren't. They were very angry about the stabbing.
I think they're working class people who were kicking off, and sometimes they were just idiots who were
some of them were idiots
taking advantage of the situation.
Some awful people, some, you know, there were decent and indecent people in every ideology.
Do you think Keir Starmer has contempt for white working class people?
Yeah. It seems that way. It was bizarre how hard he came down on them, white working class people, and not on both sides, especially when the Antifa left side is it's not just larger, it's hundreds of thousands of people, many of whom again are just people, you know, but many of whom hold quite extreme views. And he didn't seem bothered by that. So I started looking at that and going, okay, what's going on here? Why am I watching the news? And the news is all about the far right riots. But all the people I know who went to the far left ones were going, yeah, it was great. We went out. There were no one from the far right was even there. And it turned out there wasn't any far right protest. So what's going on? Are we being lied to? And I don't usually like that kind of path because it sounds conspiratorial, and I don't like conspiracies and things. I don't believe in that. But what's going on here? And then I checked the Guardian, the left-wing newspaper, and the Daily Mail, the right-wing newspaper, and both of them came down really hard on the same side. So I'm going, why are they together? That's a scary thing when the government and both sides of the press are all colluding together. That's unusual about something that is palpably untrue. And then I started looking at the stats, right? And you can see that 30% of news is now consumed on social media. When I was at the Sun for a year, I didn't mention that earlier, but at the first, when I was like 21, every conversation was about, oh, how are we going to do better than all the others online? They're all taking our figures and our numbers. So I know for a fact that every conversation at the Daily Mail, the Guardian, the Sun, all these newspapers will be, how do we stop social media from stealing all of our customers? That is a fact that they will be very worried about that. So them, along with Keir Starmer right now, every other day it's about the disinformation on social media. Elon Musk, Tommy Robinson, these are the biggest evil people in the world. They're the only people with disinformation, and they're colluding together. And that is scary because every time before some sort of horrible regime has taken hold, such as in Nazi Germany, that's exactly what happened. The newspapers and the politicians, the newspapers are there to hold the politicians to account. All of a sudden, they're all on board with one another. That's a scary time.
Have you been following the Tommy Robinson case?
A little bit. What's the latest?
They're going to hit him with 2 counts of contempt of court, and he's looking at 4 years for what I can see as being citizen journalism and documentary making.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah,
I wanted to interview him. I know, and it's great that you did. I was trying as a journalist to try and find stuff before, because I want to give, have a go sometimes and go, but this thing you said was racist. I couldn't find one single thing.
I challenge anybody to. I mean, the view I had of him before versus after meeting him and then doing the research for the it's an interview documentary that's coming out. He's a centrist progressive, pro-gay rights. He's got black mates. He's got Jewish. He's a Zionist.
Yeah.
He sat in the interview and said, "I'm a Zionist. I believe Jewish people should have a home." I was like, okay.
But he now gets told that he's a shill working for Mossad.
Yes. So you can't win. I hope you get a chance to, maybe after this, you'll get a chance to sit with Tommy, because he's a great person to interview. Have you been called far right?
Oh yeah, every day. Every day.
What was your crime, sir?
That's just my wife. No, she doesn't. My crime, well, look, I had a book out a few months ago, The Psychology of Secrets, My Adventures with Murderers, Cults and Influences. Not really to do with the culture wars, but a lot to do with authoritarianism and how regimes and cults, blah, blah, blah. I made it sound boring now with the blah, 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 but it's good.
It's a very good book. Go and buy it.
Yes. And there were a whole bunch, like the Tate Museum, there was a few festivals, bookshops who wanted me to come and speak. And then one of them, it was the Tate, cancelled because I had controversial trans views.
Wrong think.
And from that, all of them cancelled. I didn't get to speak at one single place like that. Luckily, eventually the Free Speech Union put on something for me. And funnily enough, the only festival that wanted me was Vegan Camp Out Festival in front of a bunch of woke people, which I really liked because it was a chance to say to them, like, hey, if you want other people to be vegan or whatever, don't shout and scream at them and hate them if they don't do what you do.
Yes. Speak
to them and embrace ideas. And so it was this great, and they were good. They were really open to it. So that was nice. But I wasn't allowed to do it. There was an awkward.
I'm very sorry to hear that. That's a real shame that tape fell and then everything else fell after that. That's a very, very sad state of affairs.
One bookshop, it was quite funny really, but I was supposed to go and sign a bunch of books basically, and I spoke to the manager there, and she said, "Yep, go and tell your audience." And I said, but I don't want to tell them and it doesn't happen. So you're 100%. I don't want to put out a post, hey guys, come meet me at this bookstore. And she said, no, it's absolutely fine. So did that. Everyone's going, oh yeah, what day is it? And all, it was all there. But and then the next day I get an email from Pam Macmillan saying, we just spoke to that woman and she says, actually, you can't have, you need to be sort of just a behind closed doors kind of thing. And I was like, oh. Okay, so I have to now go and tell everybody, don't go to the bookshop. Sorry, everyone, which is really bloody annoying. But I wondered what was going on. So I called And when I called, it was someone else. And I said, is so-and-so here, the woman? And the person said, oh, they aren't here right now, but they will be back. And I realized they were a they, them.
Oh.
So they must have come across my stuff,
Oh.
seen the trans stuff and gone, oh shit, why are we having this guy? Well, it's too late to cancel because they already had 200 copies of my book. So they had to have me there anyway, but they didn't want a bunch of TERFs turning up at the bookshop, which they wouldn't have been. I've met loads of my audience. They're lovely, nice, normal people. And the book is about secrets and things. It's nothing to do with that.
Just for your sake, to establish your position on this, I presume that you don't want to oppress people who want to dress as women, want to dress as men, identify that way. If I had a friend who came with me and they said, please call me her, you would, I presume?
I think I would. It's really hard to know what the right thing to do is there. I definitely feel compassion for these people. But look, I did a lot on exorcism, and I've seen how mass delusion takes hold. I've seen it in front of me. I've seen 17-year-old girls who are going through what a lot of the 17-year-old girls here are going through, which is being overly sexualized, told that they're, not quite right. There's something wrong with their body. That's how they feel. And then they go, oh, I must have a demon inside me. That's what happens in the suburbs in Argentina.
Yes, I see where you're going with this. I was actually thinking about this the other day. It's almost like a sales funnel that you go through. And it's like, well, then this, and then this. You've got a demon in you. Or, you're in the wrong body.
Right. So I would say if you fundamentally think...
We're not comparing demon possession with being trans.
I am.
Okay. He is. I'm not.
I am. Richard is not. And that's fine. We can have different views on it. And the reson I am is because...
Do you mean that sincerely? Like there's almost like a possession element to this?
No. But they call it the gendered soul. That's what some people who are against the trans movement have called it. Helen Joyce said that. She coined the word the gendered soul, as if you're a man and there's a woman inside you.
Okay.
It's no more. It makes no more sense than you're a man and you've got a demon inside you.
Okay.
There's no science behind this.
Yeah.
And the reason you know it's on shaky ground as an ideology, usually an ideology can withstand quite a few questions, even if it's a bit shaky. You ask the first question, the very first question of the ideology. So a man says, I'm actually a woman. I was born in the wrong body. And then you say, that's interesting. What is a woman? And then they can't answer that question. I could answer that question. A woman is somebody with large gametes.
Yes.
Or you can say XX chromosomes. But maybe that's not what is a woman. Okay, let's not get into the science. You can actually be kind and you can say to this person, I'm really intrigued. Can you explain to me which of your traits make you a woman? But don't answer like you're a 1950s conservative person who says like long hair and eyebrows and cooking and, I always like cooking and cleaning, because I thought we got beyond that. So I fundamentally reject the ideology. That's the issue. I don't believe a man can be a woman unless they think a woman is some sort of like silly woman face, as in blackface, but for women, like long-haired thing.
That's really, I've tried approaching it that way. That's really interesting. So you're pointing out inconsistencies within internal inconsistencies in their ideology. Yeah. They're saying biology isn't essential. And then it is, which is why they do the cutting.
Yeah, then you get told all the time, oh no, you're confusing. And there will be comments beneath this saying that I'm confusing sex with gender. Well, gender is a synonym for sex. That's all it is. It's not a separate thing, but they say it is. Okay. But it's always been used as a synonym because people felt prudish about using the word sex.
Yes.
So they said gender.
Yes.
Also, of course, gender in language. In the 1970s, I think it was, John Money was one of the first scientists or academics to start using gender as if it were a totally different concept. And he performed experiments on children, which led to them growing up and taking their own lives because he cut off their bits and said, you're a girl now. He started doing that. It's horrific.
What was his name?
John Money.
And he, as a psychiatrist or as a doctor, he actually...
There were twins born and one of them... had a slight deformity in the genitalia, and so it were boys, and so he cut it off and decided we were going to raise this person as a girl and never tell them. And that person took their own life, and so did the twin. He did all sorts of experiments like that. None of that is to suggest that anybody now in the trans community, or that many people at all, are as devious or reckless as this person was. Of course they're not. These are people who deserve our compassion. But look, I've seen, as I say, exorcism. Girls, like we have two sections of trans people now, mostly. Obviously, there are people outside. You have girls who are 15 to 22, loads of those, who don't know what's going on with their bodies. They feel trapped and sad and worried about society and how society reacts to them. And they think something's wrong. And really, when you speak to them, especially to detransitioners who are honest about what went on, they didn't want to become men, many of them. They wanted to stop puberty and stop becoming an adult because it was so scary, this whole thing. And they were told by adults that they could do it. And that's a horrible thing, enabling them like that. Then you have men, older men usually. There are young boys who are gay and told, another reason I don't like the ideology, because a lot of people consider it homophobic, because a lot of people would rather have a trans person who's girl than a gay boy.
Who would otherwise grow up as just being a gay man or a gay woman. And they're telling them, no, you're actually in the wrong body.
Yeah. And why? Because you like playing with Barbies when you're a boy. Well, that goes against every liberal urge of mine, every liberal thought I had growing up. My son can play with Barbies. I don't care. He can be gay. He can fuck whatever he want. I don't care. Fuck when they're adults. Yeah. But with other consenting adults, of course. Yeah. And that's all I care about. That's a liberal idea. Then there are older men, many of whom have AGP, autogynephilia, which is an attraction to the idea of presenting as a woman. Yeah. Which I think most men can at least get their heads into that space of like, okay, I can see why someone might find that. So, and many deny that, but many are very honest about it as well. And they say that is it. I can't remember his name. The guy, there's the artist who he's like a transvestite. And he wears like dildos going to visit charity shops and things like that. And everyone has him. And have I got news for you?
Wholesome.
Yeah, it's mad. But he was honest about this. He was asked on the BBC, they said, do you think some people have an issue with how you dress and everything like that because they are being made to partake in a sexual fantasy of yours that they didn't consent to? And he said, yeah, I think that is part of it. So that is going on. That might be going on with Eddie Izzard. Obviously, every case is totally different. So when I see in particular the young girls, 15 to 22 or whatever, they present with exactly the same issues as the young girls going for exorcism.
Yes.
And a hugely similar pool to those presenting with anorexia.
Yes.
And look, if an anorexic girl comes in and says, I'm fat, and they're skinny, and I'm the doctor, and I go, well, you identify as fat and therefore you are, I'm not doing my job. And that's why I'm not sure that it's a good idea to call a trans person by their pronoun.
Oh, interesting.
It's like saying to an anorexic person, yeah, you are fat, you're right.
All of these are issues of self-image and dysmorphia in some way. And it's almost like you're saying, well, people between the ages of 10 to 18 are going to struggle with their self-image, their place in society. And maybe that's the issue we should be getting to grips with.
100%. Because I resist any idea of like evil. I resist that. And I think it's people doing what they think is right. I don't see so much like conspiracy and like there's evil stuff going on. However, it is just a fact that in the States in particular, there's a hell of a lot of money that is given out to surgeons for doing operations.
What is the value to the medical system of one trans child?
I don't know. But
I'm pretty sure it's over $1 million. If it's if it's taken over, because the whole funnel, like the sales funnel, it's not 2 years. It can be 10 to 15 years, and there are stats online that people can look up. It's over $1 million per case.
So I looked up recently about beliefs and how beliefs are formed, and it was there's so much to show that as much as we would like to believe, we believe things for the pursuit of accuracy and truth. That's absolutely not the case. We believe things because we're incentivized to believe them. If you've got all your friends believe one thing, you're more likely to believe it. If there's money involved, you're also much more likely to believe it because it's in your interest to believe it. We don't like to think of ourselves that way. We like to think of ourselves as more selfless than that and more wonderful and altruistic. I personally don't believe in altruism, although it's nice when we're nice to one another. But I think we do it out of deterministic reasons. And so I don't imagine the surgeons are sitting there rubbing their hands with glee, like, I'm going to mutilate a child, because that would be too evil for me to imagine. It doesn't mean I am right about that. Maybe they do rub their hands with glee. I think it's a case of like, I'm getting a lot of money for this. My life's going quite well. Maybe I'll just turn the other cheek. Maybe I do believe that these people are trans. It's like you become a true believer in that sense.
There's one element of this. I'll play devil's advocate for a second. That bothers me. It's the surgery itself. It's still experimental and it's barbaric. You can't just carve a channel into somebody and say that that's a vagina. No. You can't carve their forearm meat off, roll it up into a Tootsie Roll and tell them that it's a penis. You know about the hairs that grow internally
Hair's growing internally, no.
Oh yeah, with the penis, because it's come from the forearm flesh. The hairs grow internally. They get terrible infections. They can be on antibiotics for 10, 15 years.
I knew about the infection. I didn't know the hairs.
It was the hair. It's the hair that's doing it. There's tremendous pain and tremendous suffering. Obviously, then if you're becoming immune to antibiotics, that's not healthy for you. Devil's advocate moment. Back to sci-fi. I have a machine, and I can create an Andrew Gold woman.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly functioning, didn't have to kill anybody for it. It's ethically sourced, organically grown.
Would you fuck her?
Of course, I'd be fucking her. I would be talking to you. I'd be railing you. Sorry, got that. Take that.
I'm flattered. I'm flattered.
Of course you are. Yeah. So
would she be as tall as me though?
No, hell, not for me. No, I'd be like, shrink that one down, please.
Yeah.
And we can just transfer your consciousness seamlessly into that body, and if you don't like it, we can bring you back out.
Yeah.
So it's surgery of, I don't know, aliens have come and they're benign aliens, hyper intelligent. They've given us this technology. Would you be more okay with that?
Yeah. And I'd do it.
Tell me why. Tell me why you're okay with that and not this, and then tell me why you would do it.
I don't know why I'm okay with it, so I need more thought on that. So I'll just start with why I'll do it.
So can I, before you do, I think I identified it myself. There's something about the butchery.
Yeah.
The sales funnel to, you give kids these drugs. I've taken steroids in my life and anti-estrogens, and it's a permanent damage. At age 21, I started. My endocrinal system is permanently damaged. Whatever they're giving to them at age 10, you can't just, oh, mummy, I don't like this. Oh, leave it then. Put it down. You're fucked. Then there's the carving, the gouging, the slicing. I just think but it can't be right. So would you agree that there's something about the medical malpractice, the butchery of this?
I think it's that, and I think it is that. I think it's also that it's not possible. The fact that it is not possible. So let's say you want to go and present as a woman. Well, you've been through male puberty. So you can't. Then there's the question of, okay, well, what if you gave the drugs and did all the things before puberty? And that was talked about, and that happened in America in particular quite a lot. Well, you know, I almost feel like if it has to happen, if this kid, and there's no way of doing this, by the way, because you can't do experiments on kids, and it's a good thing you can't. Yeah. But it's almost like if you are going to live your life as a woman, it would have been better had you done it when you were 12, like significantly.
Yeah, you wouldn't. It's an undeniable argument.
You wouldn't have gotten the Adam's apple. You wouldn't be tall and big and whatever. So the issue is it's not just, it's exactly what you say. It's butchery, but it's also, that doesn't make you a woman making a hole in you.
No.
You know? Now, if the aliens had a technology and they actually made a sort of a clone of you, but it's what you would have been. Now, so I've asked this question. I asked it to the developmental biologist because I'm obsessed by that as well. And she said, it sort of doesn't really make sense because every cell in your body is an XY chromosome cell. Yeah. And so there isn't a woman of you. That doesn't make sense. You could maybe have gone back in time and made kind of a twin, you know, that's a twin, but it's not the same as you. Now, would I be in that body for like a day? Or if you did, like, of course I would, because I want to experience everything. You know, that's the same reason that I and you have gone to live in all different countries and different things. It's not even that those things, is it better living in Argentina than here, or living in wherever, all the places you live? Is it better? Not necessarily, but it's different, and you've got to experience that. Yeah. I'd love to, wow, we wake up like that. I'd have a day living as you if I could.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
As a benevolent dictator, I was thinking about it. I was like, you do your national service or your community service, and then you have to spend 2 months at age 21 in the body of the opposite gender. Oh. So women learn the impulses, the instincts of men, and when we're so goofy and we say the wrong thing, why? And we learn what it's like to be a woman as an exercise in empathy. So then I thought that, and I thought, oh, well, then I'm not actually against it in principle. I'm more against it in 2024 based on the technology that we have now.
Or as the scientist said to me, it's not about technology because no technology could ever do it. And then, of course, the sci-fi in me was going, well, you don't know because you don't know about. And she was like, no, but it doesn't even make sense because everything about you is XY.
100%.
So you couldn't change. It doesn't make sense.
I agree. And if we wrote the sci-fi story, what we'd find is when, by the magic of sci-fi, your consciousness goes into a female body, you would cease to be you. Your thoughts, your feelings, your impressions. Nietzsche made this point. Everybody's philosophy is an extension of the biology. Your philosophy is who you are. It's in the DNA. You would cease to be you the moment that hormonal cocktail hit you, and we'd say, "Oh, Andrew, it's time to go back." Fuck you, I'm not. You know, Andrew would be gone.
Yeah.
You would be gone at that point.
I'd be on my period. I'd be miserable.
I'm not going back.
Fuck off, Richard.
Stop telling me what to do.
You men are all the same.
Last question.
Yeah.
Is there an anti-woke echo chamber that bugs you, where people are just saying stupid anti-woke things now in a sort of a lazy way that you've noticed that you get sick of?
Yeah. I mean, the worst at this is me, because of my titles on YouTube. I grew Heretics really fast. 8 months. You were partly responsible for it by coming on the show.
Thanks very much.
Early days. But the titles, and people say to me sometimes, like, I've listened to your show and it's so nuanced, and then the titles make me not want to share them. And I go,
but that's our job.
It's the only way. And what people don't realize is it's not like, there's no middle ground. It's not like, okay, I got 100,000 for that views for that video, and if I'd made it slightly less sensational, it would have got 90,000 or 80,000. It would have got 1,000. That's the problem. Unless you go bam with the sensations. And I'm very honest and upfront with my regular viewers about that. Yeah. And I say, I know most of you guys want the nuanced content, but I've tried it time and time again. And I know you say you click on it, but other people who wouldn't usually come, they don't, and the video dies.
Yes.
So I do that. I make these comments, these things that are sensations. I don't think it helps with the argument. But yeah, there are anti-woke people, for example. One thing I don't approve of is when they're getting wound up about the trans thing, they'll put out photos of like a trans person who's been abusive to them, but they will say, like, look at this mess, like this person thinks they're a woman or something like that. And I think
that's not great.
That's not helping anyone. It's not compassionate. It's not bringing people on side.
And that's more, I don't want to be a dick about it, but so somebody in that position with those psychological problems, that's far worse than if you just say, oh, look at this white guy with a shade, blah, blah, blah. That would be like slightly hurtful, but somebody with those psychological problems.
Oh yeah, you've got to be really careful.
Really careful.
So that is definitely part of it. And yeah, I mean, this is the problem. Like, anyone who's centrist, I'm sure you've had this. Have people called you right wing, far right?
They're going to when the Tommy Robinson interview comes out. I mean,
well, yeah, because I think we're fed up. Most of us are centrists. I'm someone who, just for anyone who is interested, I'm pro-choice in terms of abortion. Mm-hmm. Not everyone has to be. I'm interested in the other side. I am try to be a vegan or vegetarian. I'm very much pro-gay rights. Mm-hmm. I'm very much pro loads of those kinds of civil rights, feminism. Mm-hmm. I'm an atheist. I'm very secular. These are all things that 20 years ago were like far left.
Yeah, we would be in 1950s America. We would have been fucking hippies.
Like what, 1990s?
Yes, yeah.
And I remember being pro-gay marriage way before a lot of other people were.
Yeah.
Who now seem to remember that they were, but they weren't. And now I'm on the other side. And I think the reality is there are a certain group of people, particularly ones who have our jobs, because in our jobs we're no longer incentivized to hold the kind of groupthink that people who work at the BBC do. We're able to just think for ourselves, and we try to stay and have a moral center ground and go, what is this? Let me look at this individually. And we're incentivized to do so because our videos actually do well when we're curious. And I think curiosity is so integral. And I think there are, unfortunately, some people in the anti-woke group or the center who 20 years ago would have still been considered right-wing. These are people who don't like, I think there are a few of them now. There aren't that many now because they're not incentivized to think those things. But there are people who don't like others because of their race. They do exist. They do abuse people because of that. Often they're anonymous trolls. They're horrible, horrible people who don't have any interest in helping. So those people exist, and unfortunately, people like me, and probably you as well, get aligned with them, and that's an unfortunate side effect of all of this.
There's a new YouTube channel that I'm coming out with called The Strongest Argument. We have people argue controversial topics, controversial figures. I moderate, make sure that both sides are heard fully.
Amazing.
If I could get you on with somebody who wanted to argue with you in good faith, in a moderated, structured way, would you be up for doing that?
Yeah, I can never get them.
It's very hard, isn't it, to get people?
They won't come on. They won't argue their point. That sounds like a great show. And I hope you can make it work, because some shows on YouTube have done so well like that. There's that one where it's like a black background and they get like 5 people who believe one thing and 5 people who believe the opposite, and they all have to stand in different, a little bit like Peter Boghossian's street epistemology.
Right.
They all talk with one another in this really cool setting. And I think that sounds like a really great channel. If you are, like, I'm known now as a TERF. So if I email, which for anyone who doesn't know is like anti-trans. If I email a trans person and say, hey, I respect your right and I want to respect you, let's have this conversation in a really nice environment, they never ever reply. They don't get back to me because there's a no debate thing going on the left at the moment. And I would say to them, when has there ever been a society where the ideology or the group of people saying we refuse to debate have been the good guys?
Yeah.
But their side would say, but this is my identity, blah blah blah, and to have to argue it is an insult. You know, I get that as well. But if you can do that, and especially if it's someone prominent, if you can get one of these ContraPoints or one of those like,
well, we've got this short list of people who are largely left who we think can come on its time. On the more right wing side of things, or what is classed as right wing today. It's a huge list. It's a funny thing. Every time I speak to conservatives or right wing people, I'll say to them, "Look, you're being very palsy-walsy with me. You should know my views on these left-wing subjects. And I'm very moderate and in many ways a progressive." They go, "Are you? Yes, that's very nice. You coming for dinner?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, okay." They don't seem to give a shit.
No,
because there seems to be more confidence. There seems to be a little bit more fragility with the more woke sort of leftist. Well, if anybody watching would like to debate Andrew Gold in good faith, you can contact us at thestrongestargument.com. Andrew, it's always a pleasure talking to you, sir. Thank you very much.
What a pleasure talking to you. We'll get you back on Heretics as well soon.
Lovely stuff. Ladies and gents, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. We look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.